Hello and welcome to Into Your Life podcast. I'm Lenka and I'm joined here by my wonderful co-host Natalie.
Hi, we invite you to join our weekly conversations about finding more life in one's life.
Well, what does it actually mean?
We have discussions with guests about ways to live happier, healthier, and more fulfilling lives, both personally and professionally.
That sounds great. Let's go.
Welcome to today's episode. We have a fantastic lady who's flown in all the way from the USA to be with us today. I have had a lovely conversation with her once before, but she's also part of a group that I'm part of. We are in the same sort of coaching group, and this is how we met. We were introduced by a friend who's actually even been on this podcast before. So you can see how everything connects slowly, and I love it when things connect. And there's so many different ways that I can introduce you to Odelia, but she has an amazing story, and we can never do justice to our introductions. So on that note, I'm going to ask Odlia to introduce herself to you, because she is originally from France and then living in the States. So we'll have 3 accents today. Yes, I love it when we have different accents. But not only that, is she's a writer, and there is a personal story which we will be digging into a little bit to touch on, because I think it's powerful, and I think that there are a lot of you who this might actually connect with, or it might help you. So on that note, no pressure, Odelia. Welcome.
Yeah, no pressure.
And just introduce yourself a little bit. Just say who you are, what it is you're doing, and then we'll dig in deeper.
So I was born in France, and I grew up in France. And in 1995, when I was 20, almost 21, I moved to Israel. And in 2017, I moved to Colorado with my husband, my kids, and my dog. And so that's why I have a accent mixed with all kind of languages, not English, but Hebrew and French. So, and I'm a writer, as you say. So
as you can see, it's a lot of traveling. It's living in different cultures. I mean, going from French culture to Israeli culture to an American culture. I mean, they're all different, even though there might be similarities, but yet it is very different to, or can be difficult to settle into these different cultures, these different way of living, and even just language can be different. English in England and English in America is sometimes a foreign language and is difficult to understand. So can you share with us a little bit about your experiences from going from France to Israel and then landing up in Colorado?
yeah. So I grew up in France, and when I was 4 years old, my parents moved to Israel, to a little community next to Jerusalem in the mountain, and it was so good for me. I was always outside, and it was really fun. A lot of friends, a lot of just being outside and enjoying the nature. And so when we moved back to France in when I was 8, after first grade, it was really hard for me. And since then, I want to go back. I'm going back one day. And so when I was 20, I met my exes then. And it was my boyfriend, and he was from Israel. And so I decided, okay, here is my ticket to Israel. A ticket I was looking for a long time. And yeah. So, and Colorado actually, I think when I was 10 or 11, my cousin in France, I remember we were in the backyard, and my cousin said she was in the USA, and I'm like, oh, I want to go there. It sounds so amazing. So I had already a plan from when I was 10, 11 to go to Israel and then go back and then go to the USA. I didn't know about Denver. And when my husband Sharon said, "Do you want to move to Colorado?" I'm like, "What the heck? What is Colorado?" But it's in the USA, so yes, let's go. I love adventure, so
And it's so nice how people have been your sort of your ticket or the boost to get you to follow this dream of going back to Israel, and then knowing that eventually you're going to land up in the USA. And it just shows how you can manifest your goals or your dreams if you focus on them, not necessarily knowing how they're going to happen, just that eventually they do happen. And when you look back, you realize, and like you said, your then boyfriend, now ex-husband, got you to Israel. Was that sort of that impetus or that goal or that butt kicking, whichever one you want, to go to Israel? And then an opportunity came about and your now husband said, let's go to the USA. And it's followed your goals or your dreams from when you were 10 years old.
I think when we are 10 years old, we are still young. We're still have more clarity about what we want and about what we wish for, and where our goal, where we want to be. And unfortunately, when we grow up and we married and have kids, and I have kids and I love them, but you are growing up and moving in your life, and more you are moving in your life and less you remember what you really want, and that's why I'm writing, by the way, but we will talk about that after. So yeah.
But it is, like you said, 10 years old, the world is still a big place. It's an exciting place. You don't put these barriers in your way. As you grow up and become older, you start to think why you can't do something. You stop yourself from fulfilling your dreams. But at 10 years old, everything, you can do everything, and you just have that belief in yourself.
Yeah, and we
So,
can still do it later. We just need to do adjustment. So
yes, and stop putting the barriers in our way and have that self-belief that you have as a child. So one of the things that we've spoken about in the past when we had our conversations is the the adoption and what and how that's impacted you. Can you share a little bit on that? Can you go into that a little bit?
yes. So before I go into that, I want to share that before 2 years ago, maybe a little bit more, I was I wasn't able to share about. I was really it was really painful, and if you have I've said that the word adoption, I will start crying, and really, it was really bad. So just so now I can say yes, I can talk about the adoption with a big smile and not being. It's still touching my heart, It's still my story, and I love it. But yeah, so. I was born in Paris, and when I was 5 days old, my birth mom decided she wasn't able to take care of me. And for a long time, I was really mad, really, really mad. First of all, my parents they adopted me when I was almost 1 years old, and in between, I was in an orphanage.
Mhm.
And I think that that part still within me. It's a part that I keep with me, and I learn to accept and love. But it was for a long time. It was really hard. But anyway, when my parents adopt me, they keep that as a secret, and they didn't want to share about that. I think it's because of the community we lived in. Um, And also the time, it was long time ago. I'm almost 50, so it was long time ago. And they kept that as a secret from me and from everyone else. And growing up with a secret is really hard because you start at a certain age, you start to understand something is wrong, something is different. And to keep a secret, you need to have to lie a lot. And at a certain point, like when you go to school and they teach you about eye colors in biology, the one we all love. So when you go home and the neighbor asks your mom in front of you, "Oh wow, she has blue eyes. Why do you have?" It's weird because all the family have brown eyes, and your mom say, "Oh no, my dad had gray eyes, and it's jumping a generation." And I'm like, really, green, blue, so start to sound a little bit, yeah, so they keep that a secret. But today I understand why they did that. But it was really hard, yeah, to I felt like I didn't have an identity and a belonging, because my birth mom, she didn't want me, and my parents were uh, not sharing, and so for me they were ashamed. So I was stuck in the middle of all that, and it wasn't super nice to be in that place. Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing with us, because this is a very personal story. It impacts a lot of people in the world, and I don't necessarily understand from personal experience, but I understand or can gain some knowledge from your story, from somebody who I know in my past, who was very well connected, who also grew up with the secret of being adopted and having found out at 16, totally and utterly by accident. But
Me
this
too.
growing up in this lie, and it's not necessarily a lie, but as a child you start to question and start to instinct think there's something not connected. And they do say that the first 7 years of your life really have an impact, and you spent the first year of your life in an orphanage. Of course it's going to impact you and sit with you. You might not consciously remember, but it's there in your
In
spirit,
my
in who you are. It
Yeah.
sits there. So thank you for sharing this, because I know it's not necessarily an easy journey, or it's not an easy thing to share, but it's also what's helped you to become who you are today,
Absolutely.
which is a writer.
I'm actually also, I learned about my adoption also by accident. So I was sick. I was, I think, 12, but I'm not. Yeah, I think 12. Pretty, yeah. Anyway, I was always sick, always. By the way, your body remember, and even if you are not, like, you don't remember, but your body does. And I was always sick, always going, something was going on. And my dad took me to the doctor, and the doctor has question about my infancy. And my dad started answering, and then he say, "Oh, about that part, I don't know, because we adopted her." And I was like, "Okay, so you announced that to the doctor. By the way, we adopted her." And from that day, it was a really, really mess in my life until I don't know, but it was really bad. And so I went back home, and we didn't talk about that because we went, it wasn't something we were doing, like talking with kids or the parents. It was the parent deciding, the parent. So we didn't talk about that. But I remember, like, when my dad went to work, a few days later, I was watching a show on TV, and my parents were always really worried about what I was watching on TV. But that day, she just forgot and went to the kitchen. And at the TV show, it was a lady crying and yelling, "Bring me my baby back! Bring my someone stole my baby!" And I get mad, like I lost it. I start yelling and crying, and I say stuff I regret today. But I'm like, I say to my mom when she come back and she say, "What's going on? What's happening? What did you see?" And I'm like, "Who are you?" And it's really a tough stuff to say to your mom. Who are you? And who am I? And why? So, and from that moment on, it was really a mess, like really a mess. I lost my identity. I lost everything. So
Do did you find it really difficult that they weren't communicating about it? They weren't sharing about it and explaining to you. So you finding out at 12 years old, I mean, even at that age, you might not necessarily understand what adoption is. And then there's this no talking about it, and then hearing on TV, this woman crying for her baby to come back. I mean, these are things get really confuse a child. It's one thing as an adult, but it's another thing as a child not understanding, but not having your parents sit down and say, okay, this has happened. We love you, you're part of us, we chose you, whatever, adoptive parents can say, just to help a child understand.
I think my parents. So what my mom said that day, it was, we we told you, and I was like, when? And my mom said, when you were 2 years old. And I'm like, okay, I don't remember. And she was crying, and I never saw my mom crying. She was a tough lady, and she never cried. But that day she cried. And I was like, okay. And then you think I remember? And she said, no, but we told you when you were 4. And so I think they told me a few times, maybe when I was 2, 4, 6, 8. Like, sometimes they were throwing that, like, oh, you are adopted, kind of. We choose you and we love you, and that's all. Okay, bye. But we didn't have a really good communication. I have a really good communication with my dad, who was really annoying for my mom. And so we stopped communicating too, by the way, just to. And so, yeah, so no communication. Again, it was another community. We grew up in a Jewish community, and it was a long time ago, before the internet. And I think it was different. And I think my mom had a lot of shame and fears. Yeah, so.
So bringing all this, fast forwarding to now, and having to deal with all of this, what has helped you to come to terms with being adopted, to get to this place where you can actually start to talk about it now and to start to share the story, because it is a huge part of you, and it is something that's really had a massive impact on your life. And when we start to share our stories and when we start to talk about them, it's almost like it's a turning point in something.
Yeah, so I think for a long time, being the place of no identity and no sense of belonging, I was lost, and I went to find that wherever I could, and I didn't. It get worse. And so at one point I was exhausted. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, you went everywhere, you try everything. Even my ex-husband, when I met him, my boyfriend, and I was like, okay, a ticket to go with is to Israel. Of course I want that, but it was not really the good way to do it. Anyway, it's another story. But yeah, I always looking for a solution or for a sense of belonging and an identity out there. And when I met my husband Sharon, and the first thing we talk about was he shared with me on a first date. We talk until the morning, and the first thing he shared it was about his mom who passed, and I share about I am adopted. Now you need to understand that my parents, until not long time ago, were still saying don't share about your adoption, don't be it's not okay, people will be really mean to you, no, 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 like it's keep going with that, right? They want me to keep going with the lie and the secret, and I was like, I was already divorced with two kids and just dating my husband, and I'm like, I am adopted. And the first thing my husband say was, let's go and find your birth mom. And we did. And we find her. And I think it was a really huge part, but I was just exhausted of being broken inside, and being insecure, not trusting people, a lot to heal, a lot to take care of, a lot, tons of stuff. So
But
yeah.
that having this adoption is, as you said, is you had to learn to trust people. You've had this belief that to speak about it is a bad thing because you grew up with the secrecy. Don't tell anybody because they're going to be mean to you. You're going to be an outcast and everything else. It's a huge thing to live with because it's denying a part of who you are. And as you said, no wonder you were lost and had no identity and didn't know what you were doing and exhausted to living with that guilt, that shame, that all these emotions that you don't know how to express them or share them.
Yeah.
So how did meeting your adoptive mother help you to start to move forward, to start to become who you are now?
So when I met her, the first thing that was important for me, and I think adopted people can understand, relate to that. It's like she looked just like me. I look just like her. And for me, it was a huge part. A huge, 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 huge part, because the story with the blue eyes and the brown eyes, people always, oh, blue eyes, oh, blonde hair, oh, wow. And so different from the family and so different from Jewish people. You know, I grew up in a Jewish school with a lot of, I don't look like a Jewish girl from France. You can, anyway, I was always look different, always. And a lot of people were asking me, oh my gosh, you're so different, you sure you're not adopted? I'm like, how do you don't know? You're like, it's crazy, so many questions, so many pain. But when I saw her, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have one person in that world I can say I look like, and we look exactly the same. And it was really nice. We didn't share much, but um, I just talk with her and try to be really. I was really kind to her, really gentle, and I told her before we met. I told her it was a long process with a lot of stuff in between, but when I met her, I said, "Okay, I really thankful you gave me for adoption, because I'm really thankful." And I think forgiveness was a really big part of that. Forgiveness and I don't know, just to know. Oh, and she did say two things really important that changed really a lot. The first thing, that she showed me a picture of my sister because she had a lot of kids, and I was the last one. Okay. And she gave all of them to adoption or to her ex husband family. So one of them ex husband, two of them adoption, two were uh, dead, and one she kept with her, Malika. And she showed me a picture and say, "This is your sister from the same man, from the same dad. So you are from me and your dad." And I was like, "Oh wow!" And she doesn't look like us. And she said, with a picture in her hand, she said, "Oh, I wish I kept you and give her away." Yeah. And that point was like, okay, thank God. Thank God you did what you did, because I'm not sure we will get together really well because we look exactly alike. But when people look at her picture and they look at her eyes, they say, no, something, the look is not, the gaze is not the same. You have a lot more of, uh, you know, uh, good, good and I don't know, something really much better anyway. So when she said that, I was like, oh my gosh, thank God. And by the way, my sister died few year after I met my mom. So yeah, but it's another story. And the second thing she says that changed my life, when we were in the metro station, a lady came. So it happened a lot that day, and a lot of people say, "Oh wow, you look just the same." And why? It's your daughter. And she had to lie because she decided she's lying. She's lying too, by the way. You see a lot of lying. And she said, "No, no, no, it's not my daughter. It's my niece from Israel." But at the end of the day, just before we left at the metro station, one lady came and said, "Oh my gosh, you look just alike." And she says, "This is my daughter." And for me, that what that's what I was waiting all my life. I was 35, 36, I think. And I was like, "Ooh, okay." One time she said, "She's my daughter." And yeah.
It's almost like you got owned is not the right word, but acknowledged that this is where you come from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, where I came from. And for my adoptive mom, by the way, it was really hard. Oh my gosh, I have so much to share about that. It's like I can talk about that for 2 months, I think. But yeah, it's really interesting actually. How my mom felt about that, and but I didn't realize about my mom, my adoptive mom, and I didn't realize about her until I wrote my book. So
We'll go into that in a little bit.
yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you, what is, with all of this upheaval and this adoption almost being in a closet, and not being approached and talked about, how is your relationship with your adoptive parents?
Before my book. Really, 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 really complicated. And not just with my parents, also with my husband, my kids, with everyone. It's really complicated. And with my mom, it's really complicated. It was because she passed last year, but oh my gosh, so complicated. There is no communication. It's like talking to, I don't know, we just, yeah, really bad. So.
It's quite interesting how you've talked about this, how almost being part of a family is complicated because of this adoption, which becomes this big bad thing hanging there. Instead of bringing joy, it's brought this something in your family that you've had to grow up with and live
But
with.
but the fun fact, it was like they did that to bring joy, because for them it was all about joy, and they were happy to adopt me, and they did what they did to bring joy and peace. So it's really interesting.
It
Yeah.
is it is interesting how the they did it out of the goodness of their hearts, like you said, to bring joy, to complete their family, but yet that guilt or that shame or something was just hanging in the way, and it's almost like it became like a little infestation, a little virus that just sat there and
Yeah.
needed to be worked on, but instead of being worked on, just got buried and not dealt with.
And for them, I'm sure I'm not talking with them about that anymore, but I'm in Colorado. My dad is in Israel. And I think I really love Colorado and I always wish to be in USA, like I said before. But just we are in a good communication with my dad, but it's not a deep, real me conversation, you know. And so for him, I'm sure it's still the same about the adoption. It's still think one way, and I think it's another way. So it's all about perspective, I think. So
But also you helping yourself heal yourself by talking about it, by not allowing it to be in the dark and in that place of shame and guilt, and by sharing about it. So
and
on that note, I know that you've written a book, you're a writer,
you
and
are allowed. You are allowed. It's the name of my book. You are allowed.
you are allowed, a fantastic title. Can you go into a little bit about what writing has done for you, how it's helped you, what's got you started on the writing journey, and yeah, just about writing.
So when I came back from finding my birth mom, I was in Sapir College in Israel, and I was doing a degree. And I was with a writing class. I had a writing class with a really famous author in Israel. And one day I called her and I say, okay, my dream is to be a writer. I start writing story at 10 years old in France, just before the big situation with the adoption. And so and I told her I want to be a writer. And so I'm like, I am adopted. And I start crying. And she say, what about you, mom? I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And she was like, I want to know about your mom. And to tell the truth, like I said before, I never thought about my mom, about her story and why she did what she did. And my teacher say, okay, you go to your mom and you ask her question. So to go to my mom, it was okay, but to ask about adoption, it was like, no. So I needed to start with more to learn about her. And she always told me story, but I never really listened because we never really pay attention to our parents' stories. And I think that there I learned a big lesson to listen to stories. And she started telling me about where she grew up, and it was amazing. It was just amazing. And I started writing that book with all my mom's stories. And I think to go back to my mom's story, explain a lot of what she did and why she did. And for me, it was really important, you know. And um, and then I started talking about more stuff and more stuff. I reflected about what happened and about my birth mom, who I met, and yeah, and I go like that, and it was really, really intense and really hard. And it took me a long time, but it gave me so much freedom and so much peace and mostly self forgiveness. And I think that what we need the most is self forgiveness. And I don't know if people are aware that we need self forgiveness. Yeah. So.
Self-forgiveness is so important. But it sounds like this starting to write this book and being pushed by your teacher to find out more about your mum is being sort of like the start or part of your healing journey for yourself, to because you've also not only, forgive your birth mother, your adoptive parents, but it's also to forgive yourself as well, is being okay with who you are. Is finding that way to be all right with being adopted. And so this book sounds like it's been part of the healing journey that you
Oh
needed
yeah.
to get
It
to a
it
better
trans
place.
it transformed my life. Uh So it really transformed my life. It took me so many years. I started before we moved to Colorado, and I finished. Actually, I rewrote the book not long time ago. So I relaunching the book next month. Next month, I think. Yeah, next month. And so it was a really almost 10 years journey. And it really transformed my life, really healing and acceptance. And I forgive my mom and I forgive my birth mom. And I was still crying and crying, and my husband say, I'm like, I'm done writing. I had enough of writing, and I'm still crying. And my husband say, you're still crying. And I'm like, oh, so what? I love to cry. And he said, oh yeah, you need to forgive. And I'm like, I did. I swear I'm okay. But he said something really interesting. He said, I think you forget someone in the list, you know. You forgive your birth mom and your birth father, and you forgive your parent, da, 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 your sister, whatever, but you forgot someone. And I understood I need to forgive myself. So forgiving is a big, big, huge part. And then it's come the love, self-love, to learn who you are after all that journey, a hard journey, who you are now, what is left, you know. And I grew up with a big hole in my chest, and a really big, huge hole all the time, looking for people who look like me in the metro, like, oh, maybe she's my mom, maybe he's my brother, you know. Um, and that big hole is not a big hole anymore, but it's still his, like I said before, it's still a little something. But I love that. I accept it and I love it. And after that, you have respect. And I think respect is just keeping yourself in that place you bring yourself in. And you need to keep going with that respect. And it's really hard. And it's really hard because it's a everyday journey. Every day I need to forgive, love, and respect myself. So, but it brings a lot of good stuff for my family, for my friends. Yeah, it transformed my relationship with my kids, my friends, and my husband. And yeah, it brings a lot of good stuff. And so,
And as you said, love and forgiveness and respect are huge things that we all need to learn and really
oh my
embrace,
goodness.
because we're so quick to judge ourselves. We're so quick to question, to sit with shame and guilt, and we forget to forgive ourselves and to just love us who we are and to respect who we are with all our baggage, with all everything that we have. Is, oh well, we're okay as we are right now, and that's okay. And I think that is so important, and that's such a powerful lesson that you've shared with us, and obviously are experiencing for yourself. So how has writing helped you? Because I know writing is where you're wanting to focus now. This is something that we, as I said in the beginning, we'll get into the writing. Is how has that helped you? What have you found through your writing and through just writing and anything?
I think first of all, the writing give us an opportunities to slow down and we are always in a hurry, running somewhere. I don't know where, but we are still running. And sometimes I'm like, where are we going, guys? So, first of all, writing, it gave us that opportunity to pause and to, for me, it's to reconnect with my senses, and be aware of what I'm feeling right now, because it's really impacting my life and it's really impacting my days and my relationship with other people. So, first of all, be aware of what I'm feeling is really important. And to do that, I use my senses and I look around and I smell and I'm really aware of that. And then I start writing and I have no rules. And I think it's like, reflecting on what you went through. And it's a good thing because I was like, wow, I did all that, you know and I think it's really a good thing to do, to look back at your stories and say, wow, you overcame so much and you did so much and it wasn't easy, but here we are. So for me, writing is everything. It's parenting, is a relationship, it's so much stuff. Like, before writing my book, I had a really bad relationship with my daughter. And I think all my life I said, I won't be the same mom as my mom. You know that? Like, no, no, no way, I'm doing what my mom did. And believe me, I did exactly the same. And I realized that when I was writing my book, because I was writing about myself at 17, 18, and she was 18, and she was yelling here, and myself in my book was yelling here. And I have my mom in the middle, and I was a mom, I am a mom. And so all that reflection, all that perspective, and I started understanding really what is motherhood. I start growing up because I think I was stuck at 17 or 18. And at 47, I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, now I'm 47. I start to understand. And yeah, I grew up and I understand. And the question was, my husband say, remember why you were yelling at your mom. And I told him because I was afraid, but she thought it was against her and about her. And that's what I was doing to my daughter. I was yelling back. And when my husband asked me that and I was writing about that, I stopped and say, oh my gosh, she's afraid. She's so scared. And then I say, it's not about me. Let's put my ego in the trash for a moment and listen. And now we have a relationship, a much better relationship with my kid. It's so different from where I came from. And I think I broke that cycle because I'm sure I know my mom had a really, really tough time with her mom. And so, yeah, I think writing bring me so much and cut the chain of, so.
Writing can be so powerful, but I'm curious to know where writing started for you. How did you really get into it? Not just writing, because obviously we all know how to write. Like that's one thing.
Yes.
But it's the transformation of writing. It's the allowing the writing to process, to heal, to discover, to understand, to overcome. So where did you start it really tapping, and how did this journey, did you get some training? Did you just go with intuition? Did you just experiment? We were looking for obviously your journey, your experience, but also some guidance for our listeners who might feel like, journaling is the thing to do, writing is a great thing, but how do I start? Do I just, go with Dear Diary and this is going to heal me?
I so For me, it was because I was really mad. I really, really mad. And I knew, because I started writing when I was super young, I knew that it was my safe place where I can use my voice and no one will judge me. Did you see a sheet of paper telling you something, or, judging you? I never thought that. Please let me know if it's happening to you, because my sheet of paper never say no judgment and no perfectionism, you know. So to know that safe place to use my voice, and I was so mad. So I had a place to put everything, whatever I want. I am allowed to put that. And believe me, my first draft of my manuscript was a lot of b, the B word, the F word, and it was like thousand of the B and the F. And yeah, just start wherever you want. Just be aware of what you need. Take a moment to sit and ask yourself, how are you doing today? Did you ask yourself this morning, Lenka and Natalie? Did you take a second of you, less than 1 minute, to ask yourself, to look at yourself at the mirror and say, how are you doing today? Because it could be good or bad, and it's not important if it's good or bad. The importance is to be aware, because that moment will impact all your days. So take a moment to be aware about what you're feeling, and it's totally fine. Your voice is important. And just start writing. And it's a process. It's a long, long process, but it's possible.
I
If
love
I
that.
did it, you
Right.
can do it.
Yeah, just start writing because yeah, there is no right or wrong. And as far as I know, yeah, the sheet of paper will not judge you, will not laugh at you, will not correct your grammar. If you're writing on your laptop may have some opinions, but if you're writing physically, pen and paper, there are no spelling. There you cannot write it wrong. But I'm also curious to understand then obviously we have this type of like journaling or stream of consciousness writing, but you also talk a lot about storytelling, like telling your stories and creating the characters and trusting yourself and discovering yourself. So how did you learn and discover that the power of storytelling? Like what is storytelling to you?
So I know today that sharing our story is a big part of the process of healing, because if you are writing, it's really amazing, but you need to share, and that's why now all what I do, all my programs, all my stuff I'm doing, it's mostly sharing, writing and sharing. So yeah, I agree about that. We share. I think there is a lot of possibility to uh, to do that. But how I learned, I did a mess. I just did a mess. you know, I started writing my mom's stories exactly how she say them. And every word I learned more, because behind every word there is a magic place. Magic beyond every word you are saying or you are writing, mostly writing, because the process of writing also impacts your brain and your body. The fact that you have a pen in your hands, you can also type, right? But the fact that you write with your hands impacts your brain and impacts your body. So, but you can type, it's totally fine. It's still impacting me, believe me. So you type, and really behind every word I learn more about my mom and about motherhood. And then I start writing the B word, the F word, and then I start writing intuition. You know what you need. It's inside. It's deep inside, and you're just cleaning up, cleaning up, cleaning up, more, more, more. And what you need is here, and it will go and shine at the end. Um, I have a really short story about Michelangelo. I don't know if it's true or not, but we don't care. But there is a Michelangelo. One day, someone asked him about the David, and they say, "Oh my gosh, how did you do that fantastic David? and it's one of the most popular and beautiful piece of art in the world. And it came from a broken marble. No one wanted to use, no artist wanted to touch that broken marble. And he say, I took that broken marble no one wants, and I started working on it and shaping it. And the David was already inside of it. I needed just to help to get out. And it's the same I did. I just throw up everything because I think for writer it's more important. It's more difficult. Sorry, it's more difficult to. We don't have a piece of marble. We don't have a painting or a canvas. We have a piece of paper, a blank piece of paper, and it's scary. It's not judging, but it's scary. And so I say to all the people in my program, I say, create your material first. Create your piece of marble. If even if it's broken, we don't mind, right? Bring your canvas, bring your colors, and when you have that inside, you can just start cleaning, start shaping, and what is inside of you already exists. You just taking it out.
I love the physicality of writing. Like there is something magical about having the pen and paper and seeing the ink, the gel, or just the transformation, the physical manifestation of your thoughts into reality. But it's true that, there's so many different mediums that we can use to write and create. We can write online, we can write on laptops. But even I've heard these studies, I research a little bit, it's the write with the finger in the air, like even that intentionality, like we don't necessarily need to have the physical material, and yet where we kind of type write with the finger in the air, we imagine just getting the words out there. It still helps. It allows us to process things and get clarity and release things. And you mentioned that you have programs for people. I would love to know a bit more about, well, how do you then work with people? You started touching on it with, the Michelangelo and bit of the sculpture. But if there's anyone out there listening and they're like, this lady really, really tapped into something. I would love to know more about, what she does and how she does it and where can I find it more? Could you tell us a bit more about the work that you do, how you help people, how it works, what you can achieve? Anything about that, please?
I think I'm more like a guide, helping you going through that process. And every time we are discovering something else, I have a few programs, and all of them we are writing and sharing. And I'm here to support, and I'm here to create that safe place for people, like for me the paper and the pen, because for most of us, I am doing that all day every day, so for me it's like, oh yeah, just let go. But for people it's really hard to get to that point of writing, actually, and I understand. So I'm here to welcome to the writing world. It's safe, and and I really want people to share the story and to understand the connection and to understand the healing. And yeah, it's really amazing. And every time we are discovering something new. And yeah, I have a program. By the way, I have one of the program I want to share. It's writing a letter to your feeling, not about your feeling. Because I know a lot of people saying journaling, and we are right, and it's amazing, and I love it. But I did a little change, and instead of writing about your feeling, I want you to write about to your feeling. So let's say you are happy or sad, and a lot of people say, "But if I am happy, what the?" And I'm like, "It's totally okay to be happy. I'm happy you are happy, but let's write a letter to happiness." And we are writing like that, one letter, two letter, and every letter we are discovering more and more about what we want and what we wish for, and we're getting so many answers for writing. So yeah. Oh my gosh, I can talk about that like all day long.
We can talk about writing and storytelling and self-discovery and healing and forgiveness. Like we love these topics. That's why we love guests such as yourself, where we can learn a bit about your story, a bit about your background. You know, you share something wonderfully personal and empowering and allowing others to find their way to healing and to find their way to have more life in their life. That's why we're here. But before we wrap up, is there anything that you were hoping to share today? You were hoping that we're gonna have a chance to touch on. I know we went here and there, we talked about so many things, but is there something we missed in your story, in your journey, in your experience, or something that was so important that you like, let me repeat it again, like a golden nugget, a final lesson for people to take away from this episode?
Yes, I think one thing really important that can help you every day, it's like everything is about perspective, but nothing is accurate. So, yeah.
So simple, yet there's so much to unpack already. But I'll leave that to our listeners to unpack it to themselves, to find what they can find, and maybe, take a piece of paper and journal about it and see what's gonna come. I love the idea of writing to your feeling, which is a very different reframe to approach again writing and expressing ourselves and acknowledging what we're feeling and how we're feeling and what it means to us. So thank you so much for all the time, all the wisdom, being so open with your journey. More specifically, we touched on your programs and stuff, but if someone wants to get in touch with you, want to find you, where would be the best place for people to go to discover, your work, to connect with you online, or to maybe find out about your book?
So I have a website. It's Odelia, Odelia, Elgarat, Elgarat.com. And I have my book there. Uh, and I will have the new book soon, with a new cover and everything. I'm super excited about that. And then we can move to the more books that are waiting to be published, because I have a pile here in so.
Well, we'll make sure that we add all the links into the description below so people can easily find you and they can connect with you and they can explore, your latest book, and obviously keep an eye on all the upcoming books. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing so honestly and openly, and giving us some wonderful insights into your journey, but also the power of writing. And I have a question to our listeners as well. What have you learned from this episode? Was there something that really struck with you, that really resonated with you? Was it about communicating in relationship, discovering yourself, using writing and storytelling and sharing? Whatever it is, we would love to hear from you. Let us know. Wherever you're listening, there's always a way to get in touch with us. So we'd love to hear from you as well. Thank you so much for today, and I'll see you somewhere around soon. Bye.
If you enjoyed listening to our conversation, please share it with your friends and colleagues, and don't forget to subscribe. We would love it if you could give us a 5-star rating and write a short review.